a poll came out which seems to indicate that 1 in 5 young Americans thinks that the Holocaust was a myth. Now, this is one of the reasons why it's very important to go all the way back to the poll and not just to read headlines on it, because the data is, as you can imagine, a little bit more complicated than that. So this is what has been thrown around. This is just the top bit of an Economist article. I'm not giving them my money. United States, December 2nd to 5th, 2023, percent agreeing by age group with the Holocaust is a myth and the Holocaust has been exaggerated. As you can see, the 18 to 29 age demographic hits a respective 20 and 23% in those categories. Now, of course, I have pulled up the actual the Economist data source here, and we can see there's a little bit more useful information. So, agree with statements about Israel, the Holocaust is a myth. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? So it's, do you agree or disagree with the statement the Holocaust is a myth? And here we get the data sort of broken down in a somewhat more interesting way, I think. And this is what I want to look into. Okay, so we're concerned about people who say agree here. That's the issue, I would say. So if we break it down by gender, in terms of strongly agree and tend to agree, we've got 7% in total, 10% male, 4% female. So men are more than twice as likely to agree with the statement the Holocaust is a myth. If we go by race, interestingly, white people are the least likely to agree that it's a myth. Black and Hispanic people are significantly more likely than white people to believe that the Holocaust is a myth. Of them, the majority go with tend to agree rather than strongly agree. But, Catholics, am I right? We'll examine this in a bit. As for age groups, it be the Zoomers, my friends. 20% in the 18 to 29 age demographic agree with the statement that the Holocaust is a myth. 8% of people who are in the 30 to 44, millennials to Gen X, 2% of people in the 45 to 64, and then 0% of people who are 65 plus. So that's interesting. Interestingly, there doesn't actually seem to be much of a difference depending on income. So income, it doesn't seem to be like an income-dependent phenomena. Okay? Now, if we go down here, we have, why are the rows in such a weird order? It is what it is. Okay? Now, registration, the 2020 vote. Okay? Let's take a look. In terms of agree, a larger percentage of Biden voters say that they agree with the statement than Trump voters. Curious. Party ID, likewise, more towards Dems than independent or Republican. In terms of ideology, however, weirdly, liberal and conservative tend to be even out, whereas moderates have a slightly higher likelihood of agreeing with the statement. And in terms of urban, suburban, and rural, it is overwhelmingly the urban population that agrees with the statement. So that's a lot of data, lot of data. This feels upside down. Actually, I don't think it's as weird and perplexing and complicated as it seems. How many people were in the poll? It says the total number right here, unweighted number. See? What's the sample size? The total is 1,500. That's plenty of people for making determinations in this case. Not very many. This is sufficient. The sample size is fine. People will point at literally any sample size under 1 million and be like, well, that's not enough. How does that make sense? Well, okay. So the idea that more young people would fall into the belief that the Holocaust is a myth isn't that surprising to me, because the idea that the Holocaust is a myth, while it's not like new info, this is very much something that would align heavily with like contrarian-minded young conspiracy rod TikTok Zoomer bullshit, blah blah blah. I think that's there is a sort of like general trend towards contrarianism there that I think would pull people towards that answer in a way that is insincere and would sort of change in the future. What's interesting to me, however, are the racial and party ID alignments. So you know, this we have some concurrent data here. Then link it, Benjamin. We have some data here that kind of like lines up, you know. First of all, in terms of people who agree that the Holocaust is a myth, by far they're overrepresented in the urban population. It's also mostly black and Hispanic people, you know, weighted. And then you have more of them be Democrat. Kind of gives the impression that it's young, left-leaning, or perhaps moderate-leaning, black or Hispanic people who voted for Biden or consider themselves Democrats who think the Holocaust is a myth. It's kind of interesting that there's so few people here that are white, right? I don't know how much of this is Blitler shit and how much of this is like general conspiracism shit, but I do know that anti-Semitism in the black community has been an issue for a while. Let me take a look at this Brianna Wu thread. She knows a good bit about statistics. Commissioned many YouGov polls, lead the data analysis, and I want to share my perspective on why I suspect these results do not entirely show reality. First of all, let's talk about how YouGov gets respondents. First, they pay people to take surveys, then they get demographic information from them. So I can order a poll to test messaging for white Democrats who make between 40K and 65K in Western Massachusetts. That's true. As someone who's done data analysis, you get a higher number of junk responses than other methodologies. It's really clear to me that many of the people just enter in whatever to get through the poll as quickly as possible and make money. One poll I ran had a box where people could identify making 200K to 1 million. Surprising number of people check this. I flat out do not believe someone makes 200K a year is spending their Saturday filling out online surveys for $25, clearly trolling. That's true. This was done through YouGov, right? Yeah, this was done through YouGov. There definitely is a reliability issue with the YouGov model, though it can vary. It would really depend on the percentage. Now, I want to be clear because I do see an increasing tendency on the left to disregard any information we don't want to believe. The poll is finding something. I think it's pretty clear that young people increasingly do not believe the Holocaust happened. The way I professionally interpret YouGov polls are general signals for strategy. I would not say with any confidence that 1 in 5 young people believe the Holocaust didn't happen. I would say we should take this seriously. I think that's pretty reasonable. Okay, yeah, I think I agree with that. This could just be like a fundamental methodology issue when it comes to issues as serious as this. I think there was some previous research in the subject, though, wasn't there? Young people Holocaust belief poll, but this was from about a year ago or several years ago, not this current one. Are they referencing this? Disturbing findings reveal significant number of millennials and Gen Z can't name a single concentration camp or ghetto, believe 2 million or fewer Jews were killed. I don't trust this site at all. What data is this site referencing? Here we go. U.S. Millennial Holocaust Knowledge and Awareness Survey. Okay. Let's take a look at where this... Here we go. This is from NBC News. Yes, we've covered this. Survey finds shocking lack of Holocaust knowledge among millennials and Gen Z. 63% of those surveyed did not know 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust. Over half of those thought the toll was under 2 million. Okay, what was the methodology of this? Now I click on this, the survey, which will take me to, this place again. The place that reads like a propaganda rag. Okay, what was the methodology? Gideon Taylor, president of the Conference on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany, today announced the release of the state-by-state analysis. What's the methodology? Where's the paper? Commissioned by the Claims Conference. Okay, so it was commissioned by this website then. Data was collected in the U.S. and analyzed by Schoen Cooperman Research, representative sample 1,000 interviews nationwide, 200 interviews in each state with adults age 18 to 39 via landline, cell phone, and online interviews. Selected at random. For more information, please visit claimscon.com. Wait, so it was commissioned by this one website. Where's the paper? State-by-state executive summary. I could take a lot of time to go over this and determine... I guess technically my education overlaps with this, and given enough time I could look through all of it, but there's something about this paper that I find very uncredible to begin with. I mean, it was commissioned by that site, and it was, okay, Schoen Cooperman Research. So they were the ones who actually handled it? They're the ones who took the commission? Vaush, this is a Holocaust survivors org? Well, yeah, it kind of seems like it. Or at least something like it, right? Conference on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany. I've heard of them before. God damn it, Schoen Cooperman Research has some bullshit. This would take forever to go through. I'll need to look into this in the future. I think I agree with I agree with what Brianna Wu has said here, though, that there might be some reliability issues just with the nature of the poll. This seems like a similar study. Here we go, Pew Research. Okay, Pew Research. Pew Research is reliable. We trust Pew Research. Thank you, Dixie Normus 76. In your own words, what does the term the Holocaust refer to? Only 69% of people knew that it happened between 1930 and 1950. Nice. All right. Well, no getting around the fact that Americans are terrible with history. Most who underestimate the number of Jews killed in the Holocaust have neutral or warm feelings towards Jews. Coldest, warmest? What? Mean thermometer rating. Okay. But what percentage more Holocaust knowledge tied to warmer feelings towards Jews? Okay. What percentage of them? Most U.S. teens and adults know when the Holocaust happened. Fewer know when Hitler came to power. Is there not a question here that refers to how many of them? I guess it's just this one then. I thought there'd be more to it. How many Jews were killed in the Holocaust? Approximately 6 million, 45%. More than 12 million, 12%. Okay, so these guys are like super anti-Semitic. Approximately 3 million, 12%. Less than 1 million, 2%. Okay. Okay. The problem here is that the median American has an IQ of 4, particularly when it comes to history and like other countries. I don't think a Holocaust denier would answer approximately 3 million. I think they would answer less than 1 million, right? Like the people saying approximately 3 million are more likely to be just retards who don't know history than they are to be people who are 1/2 Holocaust deniers, which seems stranger to me. But this doesn't really break things down by age group, so I don't really know. Vaush, Jewish material claims against Germany has a really heavy criticism subsection on the Wikipedia page. Do they? Wow, that is big. Okay, this has to do with greed. In 2023, Claims Conference launched an international investigation into Holocaust denialism. They pushed the claim a large percentage of Dutch youth dismissed the Holocaust. However, investigators and reporters noticed the research was done shoddily and the results seemed made up. I don't know if I trust this paper. This one right here. Sorry, I don't know if I trust... not that one. The one we just took a look at where I said I couldn't look through all of it because I didn't have enough time. That one, the one that was from that page. And this one right here seems to lean more towards Americans being idiots than it does towards Americans being like all Holocaust deniers or whatever. Which means that in terms of the claim that the Holocaust was a myth, we go back to this one where YouGov seems to have, I think you could fairly argue, some issues with methodology. The first paper you pulled up has a youth sample size of 207. Do you really believe that is sufficient? For demonstrating this much of a disproportional trend, yeah. Like I said, not for like giving you perfect results, but in terms of like demonstrating a demonstrable trend, yeah. Really? Yes. I took classes on this. Yes, that's enough to get something from it. The other groups had more. Yes, they're weighted. They're weighted averages. Don't argue statistics with me. Okay. I think, what do I think about this? I think there is a flawed methodology here with regards to how this is being conducted. However, I still believe this is indicative of a real trend. The fact that there's such a disproportionate representation of Holocaust denial in young people and in Black and Hispanic people in particular is interesting. This might seem a little bit tangential, but this reminds me a bit about how when people critically investigated incel forums online, they found that a very significant portion of them were non-white. Like the narrative at that time was that incel forums were mostly made up of young white boys who were super insecure and like autistic and like right-wing or whatever. And that was definitely true, but a very large percentage of them were also Indian and Asian. Not so much Black, if I remember correctly, because Black people are saddled with, Black men are saddled with a lot of stereotypes about overrepresentative masculinity. So not only was the community more disposed against them, but also there was like less, I guess, cultural overlap. Whereas Indian and Asian men are often considered to be more effeminate or undesirable in the like mythos of incel dogma. So there were a lot of people in there, you know? I guess it's kind of a reminder that there are a lot of tendencies here that extend beyond like white guy issues. I don't know. I guess I have to ask myself, what would lead a young black or Hispanic urban Democrat voter to believe the Holocaust is a myth? What would lead you to vote for Biden in 2020 while believing that? What set of like associated, like what overlapping? Yeah, the most that I can really think of is TikTok shit. Yeah, that there are a lot of brain rotted young people who are like learning that the pyramids are actually pillars that extend from the center of the earth, or like they'll watch like some 400,000 like TikTok about how like a Black Hebrew Israelitism is the real like the real Judaism or whatever. I don't know how much are grabbed by that, but like there is a real conspiracy issue on TikTok. That's definitely true. So more about young Americans being addicted to TikTok and didn't learn anything from the class than them being Nazis? My guess, just based on the bad data that we have here, that which doesn't mean it means nothing. It just means that it doesn't mean as much as it claims to mean, in my opinion. And I can't know that for sure. It's just an opinion of mine and Brianna Wu's. My opinion is that this is more indicative of young conspiracy rot that targets people who are already disillusioned and makes them doubt a lot of big-minded things, you know? I bet you would see really similar data on like 9/11 trutherism, for example, where a lot of younger people are like, you know, doing the whole like watching 6 hours of vertical feed videos a day going like, yeah, stay woke, you know? You're telling me you didn't know that breakfast cereal is actually made of fluoride to keep your mind in control, like bullshit like that or whatever. The problem is that like we often don't recognize conspiracism in young people because it doesn't really demonstrate itself in negative ways as much until you get older. You can be kind of a lunatic crank when you're young. You know what I mean? Like you can get away with it. I'd be willing to bet I and most people in chat believed some pretty wild conspiracy shit when we were young because, you know, we were young. Like that, it doesn't matter and people aren't paying as much attention. But now you can be a massive content creator while being young, and a lot of the beliefs that you have while you're young don't get kind of like ironed out over time because you find in-groups online that reaffirm them. I guess it just makes me wonder, and I don't know because I'm not a part of these groups, both for age and for race and for being autistic, but it just makes me wonder how many like young Black and Latin urban kids are going around thinking like, yeah, man, Trump, white supremacy, fascism, and also, you know, they lied to us about everything else. Why not the Holocaust? You know, Jews control the black music industry or whatever. And it's like, there's like weird overlapping tendencies. Of course, the problem, I guess, for a lot of these young people is that these are mutually irreconcilable beliefs. You can't be a principled Democrat or a liberal while also being a Holocaust denier. Those values will eventually lead you down opposite directions, and you have to choose which one you want to be. It's really difficult to be like a liberal, but you deny the Holocaust. That is a very difficult line to walk. You know, that's a that's not an easy one to walk down. So eventually they're going to be pulled one way or another. I think a lot of them will be pulled the right way because it's much easier to be a functional adult in society while being a liberal or a leftist or even a moderate than it is to be a Holocaust denier. But I don't really know. It is interesting that this leans more towards Biden and towards Dem voters, but that could also just be a race issue that's disguising itself as a Dem versus Republican issue, you know? Because if it's mostly Black and Hispanic, young, urban people who are doing this, that would mean they're more likely to vote Dems. And it might not even be a Dems thing. It might just be, hey, do you think the online alt-right is going to accept Black and Hispanic people as a critical wing in their front against Judaism if they find out this data? Do you think it'll be like, oh, shit, turns out white people have actually consumed the most slop. You know, it's actually our brothers, Black and Hispanic people. Doubt it? Yeah, me too. But it's funny to think of. If Nazis could coalition build, you know? Vaush, true, but what's the explanation for so few Republican Holocaust deniers? Because being a principled Holocaust denier basically means you have to be a neo-Nazi, and there aren't that many neo-Nazis. It's much more likely that a person be a conspiracy brain-rotted, like, adjacent Holocaust denier than a person be, like, a full-on committed ideologue to that belief system. I guess just statistically speaking, you know? So, I don't know. A lot of Republicans are right-wing and fascist, but not really in, like, a Nazi way. The Nazism tends to, like, filter up to the top, but I think for the most part, the ideological tendency with Republican voters tends to be towards a kind of Christian nationalist white supremacy, which often overlaps with Nazism, and a lot of the conspiracy theories that conservatives use are derivative of anti-Semitic ones, but they're not like, yeah, the Nazism is often incidental. It's often like they're ripping they're cribbing notes off the Nazis, not like your average 75-year-old white boomer is like being radicalized against Judaism. A lot of them are Zionists, Either way, I think this data looks pretty bad, but my big takeaway from this is to not worry about it too much. I think we have an issue with young people, and probably particularly young people of color. Man, I don't really want to open this can of worms right now, but based on the glimpses of it that I see as a person who is both white and nearly 30, when it comes to conspiracy brain rot shit that isn't just explicit conservatism, I really think it's disproportionately in the black and brown community in America. I really do. And there's probably a lot of reasons for that, like probably the same reason that black people are much less likely to trust medical institutions. There's a kind of innate distrust of institutional power when you are a minority, when you're marginalized. But like that, yeah, that's definitely a thing. So I would need to, I guess, gather my papers together to go over that, because that's like a whole thing, and people are going to accuse me of being racist or whatever, I think that the conspiracism is an issue. However, my big takeaway from this is that while this is something to be worried about and looked at, don't worry about it too much. I do not think 1 in 5 young people are Holocaust deniers. Flat out, I don't. I think that with proper methodology, if you really went up and talked to everyone, a very small percentage of them would be. And it would be more evenly distributed across age groups as well. I think that what we're looking at here is a consequence of both youthful stupidity and irresponsibility and a particular trend towards conspiracism that we're currently living through. And a lot of the other data that we see, like this being mostly urban and this being mostly Democrat, has more to do with the fact that it's mostly black and Hispanic. And that is its own issue, but I wouldn't go worrying about the Fourth Reich being established by, like, I don't know, black people anytime soon. That seems unlikely to me. Yeah, but we still see that data disproportionately towards Dems here, Godzilla 2K. But yeah, there is a slight trend. It's worth noting that even though under party ID, a lot of the agrees here go towards Dems, by ideology, the largest group is moderate. Isn't that interesting? Well, a lot of moderate black and Hispanic people end up voting for Democrats because Republicans are so racist that it's kind of a no-sell, But when you look in the black community, it's not like they're all progressive. On average, I'm pretty sure the black community has more issues with a lot of reactionary tendencies than the white community. A lot of that has to do with poverty, in-group dynamics, living in or out of the cities, whatever. There's a lot to it, it's complicated. But I think, yeah, it's a lot of, yeah. Also, I don't know what also, it's probably worth pointing out that moderate doesn't tell you very much. I don't like lib mod con. What about leftist and rightist? Like Nazis won't call themselves conservatives often because they think that it's like by con they mean like neocon, which they don't agree with, Vaush, would you do a call in to get your black fans' thoughts on this? Nope. There's nothing I care about less than random anecdotes from people because of their race. What you should care about is my random anecdotes, irrespective of my race. Okay. Does everyone understand why I said all the things that I said about the particular piece of data? I think it's very complicated. I just don't want people to fall into like hysterical concern, being super paranoid. There is a reason why younger people are so disproportionately left-leaning. This is more complicated than this, Yes, I understood and memorized every word. Good. Finally, a good VGGer. To an extent, feudalist realism. I think there's something there. It's also more complicated than I want to get into here, but it's also worth noting that Israel's behavior over the past couple of months is going to lead to a sharp increase in legitimate anti-Semitism, mostly in young people, for like decades to come. They're like, the right wing has gotten a huge boost. Not the right wing, sorry. Nazis have gotten a huge boost off of like, hey, notice how Israel is lying about literally everything they're doing right now. I wonder what else they've lied about. And it's like, I'm not saying that line of logic is correct. It's not. I am saying, however, that Israel is doing a lot of very effective propaganda for the other side right now, purely by virtue of being that awful. So that's not good. I don't think that bad schooling could lead you to the answer that you think the Holocaust was made up. I think that has to be like kind of a choice. Non-white anti-Semitism in particular, really interesting how this might play out on the legacy moving forward. Yeah. There's already been a massive spike in anti-Semitic attacks. Yes, certainly true. And of course, while this is not, an excuse for the people who are engaging in these attacks, it's worth noting that this is a pretty direct example of Israel making the world less safe for Jews by screeching at the top of its lungs, hey, we are the Jewish state. Everything we do is what Jews do. Everything that what Jews do is what we do. We are Jews. And then doing a genocide you're pretty much doing about the worst possible optics move. Like it's difficult to imagine a greater like effort that could be made to sort of disparage the reputation of Jewish people around the world, if ever illegitimately, you know? Is there less Islamophobia happening than anti-Semitism? In terms of direct hate crimes, yes, anti-Semitism is much more disproportionately common than anti-Muslim behavior. How big will the increase in anti-Semitism be? I don't know. I can't see the future.